On this week's episode of the Autohaus podcast,
7600 Plus is a collection of my favorite 8.6 days. Sometimes we spent them staring at icons, and other times we spent them in the backyard. I loved them all the same. I think the natural instinct is to kind of look away, but I think that's also how we got here in the first place. And I feel like there's been a lot of terrible things that have happened where I might be upset or outraged for a day, but then I look away and, we can't do that anymore. We can't look away anymore. So, I've been trying to learn and educate myself, and my girlfriend and I have started to, watch things and listen to podcasts and listen to audiobooks about racism and about the things we don't understand because we do have white privilege, and we just want to know a little bit more about what's going on and what has gone on in the past that led us to here, and how we personally can do better in the future.
and so one thing that recently links to that is actually your zine that just recently came out.
Yeah, so basically it was just a couple days ago I released a photo zine. It's called 7600 plus, 7600 plus, however you want to say it, and it's a zine all about AE86s. And it started as something to try and keep me preoccupied and keep me productive during the quarantine. So I've been making it for a couple weeks, and I just got the first batch of copies in the mail like a week and a half ago. And then pretty much as soon as I got the zines in the mail, all the protesting started to happen. And, I was hoping to take a bunch of cool product photos, take them, sitting on my car, take just a bunch, kind of have more of a grandiose reveal, here's this zine. But when the protesting started happening, it felt like this could be a good way to get people in the car community involved in donating to a really good cause. All the money from raised from this selling the zine goes to Black Lives Matter. So it was really a way to rally the car community together to talk about this, to share it, and hopefully, we can all use the voices that we have on our platform to just get people talking and donate to a good cause.
Talk about the title. What's the title mean?
So the title is 7600 plus, 7600 being the stock red line of the 4AG. This whole book is filled with stock and highly modified AE86s. So, 7600 is where you it's way far past red lines for a lot of other cars, but for the 8.6, it's kind of just where we get started. So the idea behind that was just a book about all these cars that start at 7,600 RPM, and once you modify them, they just keep going up and up and up.
I know you've been working on this for a long time now. When you initially started, what was the premise behind making this? Because it's taken this long amount of time, all this effort and taking the pictures, everything, producing it. And then so much has happened in the world, and probably with yourself too personally, during this span of time. How has that motivation or drive changed throughout this time making the magazine?
Well, the photos in this book are taken over the last 6 years, and I've been into the AE86 for 6 years now. So it's one of the first photos in the book is the first take. It's from a roll of film that I shot on the first day I ever saw an AE86 in person. And then the next page is me buying my 8.6 a month later. So it's 6 years of photos that I've been taking. I feel like I've been pretty nonstop with AE86s for the last 6 years, and I've never had time to really sit down and go through the photos and really compile them together. But when COVID hit and we kind of just got stuck in the house for weeks on end, it was a forced break and a forced stop. And it was a time where I thought, okay, this is a good opportunity to stay productive and compile all these adventures that I've had over the last 6 years into a little book and be able to share them with people. And I am so thankful for the experiences and the friends I've made through 8.6s that I just wanted to share some of those adventures with other people and share photos I've taken of friends' cars, of cars I've gotten the chance to see that I didn't ever think I was gonna be able to see. So, the book ranges from photos taken in a friend's backyard with our 8.6s all the way to seeing Suchiya's car at Tech Arts, and then, everything everything in between there. So it's really just a way to share all these moments with the entirety of the community.
And then how come a magazine? And I'll kind of premise this. So long time ago, I think you told me or Grant told me you were working on this project. And I'll be honest, I was a little bit apprehensive because we all know the death of print magazines. But apparently I was really wrong because you've got a tremendous response. I mean, just from an outsider's point looking in.
Yeah, so I decided to go the zine route because a zine versus a magazine, the zine ends up just being kind of like a short form magazine. It's the format, the sizing can be more of whatever you want, the contents or whatever you want. There's less of um, a certain platform or guidelines to follow. So, and another thing is that, like, I do video professionally, and I take a lot of photos, and it's really satisfying to see your work in print, to be able to hold it and touch it, and that's not something that I often get to do. So actually printing the work as opposed to just posting it online or sending somebody a high-res file or something was really important to me. So the way I actually made the book, I got, I think, a little over 200 photos printed, and I laid them out on the floor of my apartment, and I started to kind of push them around and see what photos sat well next to each other, see what photos kind of told a story together, see what days I wanted, like 8.6 days I wanted to collect together and present them together as a page. And I started laying them out on pieces of printer paper. I started ripping the photos up. I started cutting them with scissors and just collaging them together, because that's kind of how these memories feel to me. They're all just kind of flowing, and they move together. And much like the Corolla, things are often messy around the edges, and the form of the book just kind of reflected the way I feel about the cars and the way I feel about the memories. So I wanted to try and present it in a fun and interesting way. So yeah, it's just like taking 200 plus photos that I printed out and condensing it down to this little 36-page book. It's like the size of half a piece of printer paper, so it's 5.5 inches by 8 inches. It like almost fits in your pocket. It's the size of like a Nintendo Switch, and or like an iPad Mini, and it's just or it fits in your 8.6 glove box, and you can always just have it on you and look at photos of cool 8.6s from around the world.
I saw some snippets of the zine on Instagram, and that's one thing I noticed. In the zine, you physically ripped photos. What'd you do? You like took a picture of that? How did that work?
I ended up like ripping all the photos up and taping them to a piece of printer paper, and then I scanned that piece of printer paper back in. So yeah, it's a very, when you look at the book, it's, everything feels very tactile, and like you see some like Scotch tape where I taped photos together, or taped them back together after I ripped them, and I was like, oh, I guess I shouldn't have ripped that one, and just put it back together. Yeah, it feels very physical, and I shot the photos over such a long amount of time. Some are film, some are digital, everything shot in different formats, and it's like this was a nice way to try and make everything feel cohesive and combine things. The common theme is that none of it's perfect. It's all ripped, it's all taped, it's all just kind of smashed together. And I think it came out awesome. I'm unbelievably hyped on it.
Oh yeah, you and the rest of the world, man. Again, like the response has been. I'm sure even for you, like this response has been unimaginable, right?
The response has been crazy, and there's been like one of my favorite posts I saw today. Somebody shared this. His name's Yanimator86 on Instagram, and he does like amazing artwork of 86s and other anime things. He's just a great artist. But he shared a photo of his like whole magazine collection of Carboys and Levin and Toreno magazine, and said like, "Oh, I can't wait to add 7600 plus to the collection." And that to me, I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, my book gets to sit next to the iconic books. Like that is really incredibly fun, and the fact that we can all kind of fanboy and fangirl over these over these cars, over a little booklet, and at the end of the day, all the proceeds end up going to Black Lives Matter. It's just really, really cool. I think from beginning to end, this project has been um, cool and fun and humbling. And now with the addition of the charitable element of it, it feels important. And I couldn't be happier about it.
Yeah, I saw it also got picked up by Jalopnik.
Yes, which is so cool. Jalopnik have always been really kind to me. I've done some work for Jalopnik and done some shoots for them, and I can't thank them enough for posting about it because that is just too cool. And yeah, a couple people have posted about it that just like I as soon as they posted the sales just shot up. My phone was just blowing up from PayPal notifications. Jalopnik posted, Shirts Tucked In posted, Drift Team Animal Style posted, and Jacob posted, and he has been posting nonstop, and that has been a huge thing. Even the owner of the pink Levin that's on the cover of the book reached out to Jacob and was like, I don't know what Eric's saying. What is he talking? What is this? And Jacob was able to translate and tell him that he'd get him a copy. So it's been very exciting to see it shared around. And the sharing is also like one of the things I'm the most excited about when it comes to this, because I initially wanted to offer this in support of Black Lives Matter because I would I would go on my personal Instagram feed and I would see nothing but protesting and people speaking up, and I would flip over to my car Instagram, outrun.86, and my feed was just like I just wasn't seeing that same type of outrage or those same type of people talking or trying to use their voices to speak up or to learn more about fighting for minorities. And I was like, I have the zine. They're in boxes. They're ready to go. This is the right opportunity to get people talking.
In the zine, is it all pictures or is there any words or any sort of like narration in it?
I write a little forward at the beginning of the zine, which I'll read the forward. Which I think it sums up the book pretty
Okay.
well. 7600 Plus is a collection of my favorite 86 days. Sometimes we spent them staring at icons, and other times we spent them in the backyard. I love them all the same, which really sums up like what the contents of the book are. It's like one of the first pages is like the first day I saw an 86, and it's like in the backyard of my friend's house. We're driving his SR5 around a little dirt track he had, and that was like one of the most fun days I've ever had with an 86. But on the flip side, those same friends and I were able to go visit Tech Arts and talk to Kamada-san and see Tsuchiya's 86. And I loved that day too. That was absolutely incredible. But I can't say that I had more fun at Tech Arts than I had in my friend's backyard. These cars just have such a huge range of accessibility, and you can see iconic race cars, or you can just beat on a low spec model in the backyard, and you're having fun no matter what.
Agreed. Until you experience real life, then you're not having fun.
Yeah. I mean, there's even fun in the pain of real life, I think,
There's
sometimes. But a lot of times there's not. But sometimes
yeah,
there
there's the
is.
fun in the camaraderie of like, it's okay, man. I know the feeling. I've been there.
Yeah, they're very narcissistic cars.
Hey, so one thing that you touched on that kind of resonated with me is physical photo photography rather than digital. And what I mean by that, I read a Speed Hunters article one time about how we're like oversaturated with images. And that's why, like, one of the reasons the builds for cars get crazier and crazier. And because we become numb in a sense to cool cars now, I guess. But that numbness isn't there when you see a car in person. So I think specifically they use the example of like Rocket Bunny or like really wide body cars or RWB cars. Like we get numb to seeing all those images on our Instagram feed or on the internet. But if you see one in real life, it's really like awe inspiring. I don't know if you have like the same sentiment.
Yeah, I feel that totally. There's just something different about something being physical or seeing something in person and being able to like interact with it, or like, not being able to interact with it. It's somebody else's car and all you want to do is like look in it or sit in it or touch it or drive it, and you can't because it's not your car. Like there's just this like emotional reaction to things being physical. And yeah, I think we all look at, I mean, it's the same way, like, I think there's a huge market right now for people going on Yahoo auctions and buying vintage carboys and like old 8.6 magazines and stuff. That's like people are paying way more than they paid 20 years ago for these magazines today. But you can probably find all the scans online. There's a million Instagram accounts that scan in old carboys and you can look at the pages, but there's something to be said about holding it and actually having the magazine, having something to look at and flip through the pages. And there's cars that, I've seen photos of online and I think they look awesome. And then when I see them in person, it's a totally different experience. You're just like awestruck and you're like, oh my God, like this thing has a presence and I'm standing near it and I like feel this car right now. So yeah, I think physicality is important, especially because it's not like I sit down like with a cup of coffee and I'm like, oh, I'm going to go on Instagram right now and take a look at some cars. It's so incredibly passive. I don't make time for Instagram. Instagram just like finds its way into every free moment of my life, or anytime I have my brain would usually just be resting. I instead check my phone and check Instagram, and that's when I see these cars. So having something physical, something that is in front of you that you need to put in some effort to pick up and read or look at is important, I think. It's just a different approach.
And then likewise for me, growing up with print magazines, when magazines used to be like you'd go to the store and some magazines would be sealed up so you couldn't even read them in the store. And then
That was the
like
worst.
magazines used yeah. Tell me about it. and then, and then like magazines used to be like book thick, and like every page was like, you know what you would think like thick magazine glossy. Again, like even the physicality of print pictures, physically the print pictures, and then like how a magazine, or for you a zine, is like how the editor or how the artist decide to lay it out. There's something really different about that too versus digital media today.
Yeah, there's just, I think there's just a different art to it, and you're in control of more of the way that someone gets to perceive and look at the images. When you post something online, like maybe somebody's looking at your photo with the brightness on their phone turned all the way down. Maybe somebody's looking at your photo and they have like that night mode on, so their whole screen is orange to save their eyes and your photo doesn't look right. But when you're doing something with print, you get to say like, oh, I want the page to be glossy, or I want it to be matte, or I want the paper to be a little thicker or thinner. And those are really important decisions because you get to dictate exactly how somebody's going to view your image, and you get a little bit more control over the experience that you're giving to somebody.
Have you bought any? Japanese magazines recently?
Yes.
Okay. One thing, because I'm also into Gunpla, so are you familiar with Gunpla?
Yeah, I am. Oh my God, I can't afford 8.6s and Gunpla. That is another slippery slope.
So I am into it, but I stopped the hobby because exactly what you just said.
Yeah, that's a very slippery slope.
You probably know, but for listeners who don't know, like a lot of Japanese magazines, I guess magazines are still popular in Japan. They'll come with they'll come in a sealed package, and sometimes they'll come with extras, like part of a special edition, like add-on for your model kit, or they'll come with a toy or like a sticker sheet, which is I think very uncommon for U.S. magazines. But yeah, that I guess that just shows the popularity of like print magazines are in other countries still.
Yeah, there's a Japanese bookstore here in New York City, and I've gone before, and you'll like there was like it was a fashion book and it was like $20 or a fashion magazine. I was like, that's kind of expensive. And then I look at it and like it's in kind of thick packaging and it comes with a backpack. There's just a backpack jammed into
Oh my god.
the wrapper behind the magazine. I was like, how are they doing this? This is incredible. Do you have a collection of 8.6 magazines or do you have any 8.6 magazines floating around?
I subscribed to Modified magazine in my youth, so I
Cool.
don't have the heart to throw away any of my print magazines. So there's boxes of magazines, and then it's funny, like even in the death of print, I would see that a special edition magazine was coming out, so I would on purpose go to the bookstore just to get the print version, or even like out of date versions. I've like scoured the internet for so give you an example. Super Street did a few like retro themed magazines. Like I on purpose scoured the internet to get the print copy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good for you. You're keeping print alive for as long as it possibly can stay alive.
Do you remember the Project Car magazine where they did the GTS to or SR5 to GTS swap?
Yes, I
I,
do.
dude, I don't know why I keep confusing the two, GTS to SR5 swap. Why?
Yeah, the worst swap in the world.
So, okay, so the owner of the SR5 that they did the swap on is actually a big fan of the podcast.
No way.
Yeah, so Koji Mori 86, his name's Koji. And I need to look at it again, but I think he was like part writer or part of the editor for Project Car magazine.
That
So,
is too good. That's amazing. This is the smallest community. It's a
oh,
huge community, but it's the smallest community. It's so weird.
I know, dude. So, he DM'd me. He was like, "Hey, man, a big fan of your podcast. If you remember this magazine, that was actually my car that they did the swap on."
That's incredible.
Yeah. So
What are the chances of that?
even more incredible was that he sent me a digital and a print copy of that magazine.
Wow. That's hard. The print copy's hard to find.
Yeah, and it's like in pristine condition. I almost wanted to tell him like I can't accept this.
Oh, that's amazing.
So next time you're here, Takayono's looking directly at me because the print copy is hanging up on our in the office wall.
Oh my God, I can't wait to see that. I can't wait to come back too.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I have one little story about a weird small world type of thing that happened last year that I need to tell you because it's such a weird story.
Go ahead. I want to hear it.
So last time we were in Japan, we went to this place, Big Bang Yamada. Have you ever heard of it?
I have not.
It's incredible. It's a drift cart place. So it's just regular gas powered go karts, but it's indoors and there's no ventilation. So you walk inside, you get a headache immediately. But they coated the floor in some way that it's super slippery. So you basically hardly have to get on the throttle and these go karts turn sideways. And it's just this little it's this little tiny track inside, but you basically just like go in there with like 6 carts and just run tandems. And it is the most fun thing that I've ever done in my whole life. It's incredibly fun. We always go and we're there for like 8 hours. But last time we were there, there was this guy who he was probably in his 40s. He looked like he was just like, we were like, we're having fun, but like sometimes, you throw it too hard and you spin or you crash or something. This dude, he looked like he was half asleep. His eyes were like 90% closed, and he didn't even look like he was paying attention whatsoever. And he was just going for hours, throwing like perfect lines around the track, no problem. Did not look like he was having any fun whatsoever, but he was just absolutely shredding. Um, and we were just like blown away by him. But later that night, we go home, we go back to our Airbnb, and we're car nerds, so we just are watching 8.6 videos on YouTube, and we go over to the video of the dude in the 8.6 going down Iraha. It's just like the most insane 8.6 drifting video. It's probably like, I think it's in the 90s. He's just like ripping an 8.6 on Iraha. He's wearing cool driving gloves. But we decided to go, we watched that video, loved it, and then went to his YouTube channel. And he hasn't uploaded much, but what he did upload was a video like 10 years ago from Big Bang Yamada. And we're like, oh, no way, he's been here. That's crazy. And we're watching, and one of the guys in the video is that guy that we were just driving with earlier that day that looks like he's been there forever. And evidently he has been, because we found a video of him also shredding like 10 years ago.
That's ridiculous.
It was the weirdest thing. I was like, how is this happening right now? We were bugged out. We kind of thought he might be like a ghost of the track who's just always there.
Ghost of the go-kart track.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's about it for the zine for me. I would just like to say, if anybody wants to pick up the zine, proceeds go to Black Lives Matter, and you can buy it at outrun86.bigcartel.com.
I assume your first run ran out already. It's gonna be on like super back order.
Yeah. I did. Thankfully I prefaced the Big Cartel saying that shipments were going to be delayed due to COVID, because it's one thing to like go to the post office and just drop off a letter or a package and be like, all right, see ya, and like do that safely. But it's another thing to like go there with a couple hundred magazines and be like, hi, I need to ship these. Like, I'm going to be at the post office for like an hour or more doing this. So I need COVID to slow down. I need to make sure it's safe to go into the post office and spend some time there and figure out how to get all these magazines out to everybody. But that being said, I did run it. I printed 100 to start, and I thought that would last me for a long time. And then through the purchases and contributions and all of the sharing that this incredible community has done online, we sold out of those first 100 in like 12 hours. So I've already ordered a second batch, a bigger batch for the second batch. So we're doing pretty well right now, and I'm super excited, and it like warms my heart that this is going to such a good cause at a time when they need it most.
I've supported donation or like movements like this before, and one problem that I've saw before is like there's such an overwhelming response like you're receiving right now, and then it's going to be a challenge to fulfill all these orders, especially because there's other stuff going on like COVID, right?
Yeah, man. Every time we do a podcast, something a new terrible thing has happened, so we might need to stop podcasting together.
Oh no! Oh my god! But yeah, the last like donation type thing that I supported was actually for the tsunami in Japan, which was like a long time ago. At least I want to say like 10 years ago. But the guy who was doing like the fundraiser is probably a better word for it.
Yeah, I think that's a good word for it.
Yeah, he was selling his car club stickers, Heartbreaker in San Jose.
Oh yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, awesome. So he was selling stickers, and all the donations, he was going to find another like tech company in the Bay to match his donation, and then he was going to send it to the Japanese consulate. unfortunately, what happened in the end for him was that like it was just him like physically cutting and like I don't know the right word for it, but like weaving the stickers out, and like people were filing like PayPal disputes against him, and someone backed him up like, hey, I would hope that you guys are trying to donate for the cause and not just trying to buy a sticker, right?
Yeah, totally. And I feel that entirely because the first run of zines that I got, I bought 100 copies, and I figured that was going to last me a long time. And I figured, hey, maybe if I'm lucky, maybe one day I'll get to like order some more. Maybe I'll run out of these 100. And those first 100 are gone in 12 hours. So um, luckily, this is COVID time. I'm on lockdown. I have nothing to really do and nowhere to go. So I ordered all the packing materials today online. Those all come early next week. And I'm just going to start packing these zines. I'm going to sit down and write a couple hundred addresses on some envelopes. And as soon as it's safe, I'm going to get ready to take it over to the post office and get these out to people. But yeah, I want to be as swift as I can about getting these into people's hands. At the same time, the thing that I think is the most important is getting the money raised to Black Lives Matter immediately, because they need it right now because of everything that's going on. And I am definitely, not a charity. I am not a person that is like used to doing this. I am a guy in an apartment that loves 8.6s and was able to print out some zines. And I think this might be the first time I'm going to the post office to mail more than like, 2 or 3 things. So it's definitely an undertaking, and it's definitely a little scary because I'm doing something I've never done before, and I'm doing it swiftly and without the most research because I think to support this cause, it's all about acting quickly and acting right now. So, I put the zines up online. I feel like they're selling like wildfire when you consider how niche of a zine this really is. And I'm excited to figure it all out and get these out to people as fast as I possibly can. And if anybody's listening that purchased one, first off, thank you. Thank you for supporting such a great cause. And second, all the things I just said, I'm just one person doing this out of my apartment and trying to do it safely as far as social distancing and following the guidelines of how we should be acting during a pandemic are concerned. So I appreciate you waiting. I appreciate you going for the zine at all. And if anybody gets sick of waiting and they really like need to see what's in the zine right now, I'll send you a PDF. But I feel like what we were talking about earlier, like holding something and physically looking at something that's tactile, like that's part of the experience. Opening something and getting to like sit down and read it is really a part of it. So I appreciate everyone's patience.
Yeah, so for the listeners of the podcast, I mean, just thank you guys for supporting Eric, supporting the movement, and but please be patient because of the overwhelming response, what's going on in the world, and then also he's only one Eric.
I'm gonna do my best, though. I really am gonna do my best to get these out to everybody, and I'm excited because I want everybody to see it. Like, I'm pumped. I want people to see these adventures I've had and see these cars that I've gotten to see in person, and hopefully inspire some people to have their own Corolla adventures.
And in some other, even more niche Corolla news, why don't we talk about some air conditioning?
Yes, that is some niche Corolla news that needs to be less niche. I think everybody needs air conditioning in their car.
So, have we ever talked about the air conditioning on your car?
We talked about it a little bit on the last podcast. I had just gotten it done.
Okay, so why don't we do a recap about what is on your car right now?
Okay, so I decided with my car, my hatchback, it's really an OEM plus build, and I wanted to be period correct, but also wanted some creature comforts of a modern car. So, the suspension on its annex suspension, which I think is a really comfortable and modern feeling coilover. The stereo is a newer stereo with CarPlay because, GPS is awesome. And the air conditioning is not a 30-year-old air conditioning system that feels like somebody's just blowing on your face. So it is a vintage air system that was installed by a certified installer here in New Jersey. And I can't rave about it enough. Having modern air conditioning in a car like this completely changes it. It takes it from being a car that you can only drive when it's not deathly hot out, or you can, if you do drive it when it's deathly hot out, you have to really just be miserable, to a car that you can drive all year round, no matter how hot it gets. And like, that it's brand new air conditioning, and it's going to work, and it's going to be reliable. And if something breaks, you're able to service it because you can call up Vintage Air and be like, hey, this broke, and they can send you a new one. You don't have to hit the forums to try and like search down some 30-year-old parts. So it's pretty good.
Kudos to you for being the catalyst in getting this Vintage Air project going for me.
I'm happy to have been the one. Yeah, so Vintage Air, for anyone that doesn't know, they are a modern air conditioning company that specializes in retrofitting modern air conditioning to older cars, and they have a really big presence in like the hot rodding scene or older American cars. And they have started to do some do-it-yourself air conditioning kits for some older Japanese cars, mostly Datsuns. I think they have like a 240Z kit. But they hadn't done anything for an 8.6. So I ended up going to a shop that specializes in installing vintage air systems, and we kind of like took a look at the car. They did the measurements. They told me exactly what we needed to order, and they made it work. They kind of did a custom setup for my car, which works perfectly and feels totally stock. And now I shared that parts list with Ezekiel, and we are starting to get off the ground.
I remember you first telling me this, and I was like, it's so cool you have like modern air conditioning. And not only that, the unit you have, which is specifically the Gen 2 Mini, it's AC, defrost, and heat all in one combined unit.
Yeah, I'm pretty hyped on that. It's cool to replace like the entire system as opposed to just doing the heat or just doing the AC, because there's some of the like there's some components that get replaced that you might not think about that much that make more of a difference than you would think. So it's not just that like a perfectly working stock 8.6 air conditioning system is still not that great and still not that cold. But one of the things this obviously makes it colder than it ever was stock, but you're also replacing the heater core, which is cool because the heater core is one of the more annoying things in the 8.6, I think, and especially trying to like fully clean out a 30-year-old heater core is not a fun process, and you never get it like 100% clean. And another thing is that it replaces the climate control panel, that whole bezel in your dash, so that you don't have, your cables aren't impossible to move, and how they lock up after 30 years. You just have nice working dials that feel modern, but Vintage Air offers a bunch of different styles, so you can make sure that it's not feeling like you have this modern unit in front of you. It's very simple, very sleek, and it feels great.
Yeah, you made a good point about how much the system replaces. So in the Vintage Air system, they use servos instead of a physical cable. And that's a big thing with these cars now is that, so for sure, I have one customer, the cable from up to the heater valve in the engine bay, that cable is totally snapped. A lot of people are familiar with like the cables being so sticky, it feels like you're going to break the whole climate control unit trying to move the cable from side to side.
Yeah, it's not fun to like need to change the temperature and feel like, I feel like moving the climate control switches are more difficult than like turning the wheel in a manual steering car. Like that's actually the rougher part of it.
So to take a few steps back, Stephen Van, who has been on the podcast now, is actually a new Battle Garage employee.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
And the stars kind of aligned on this one for the AC project because he's been trying to get AC in his car. So factory GTS, factory came with AC, but somebody took all the engine bay stuff out, and there's a AC delete duct inside the cabin instead of the like evaporator box. So somebody on purpose converted it to non-AC at some point.
Man, people have done some stupid stuff over the years. I get it, but like,
Yeah.
man,
Well, speaking of stupid stuff, I am one of those dum dums who had, dude, I had working AC. I converted it to R134, and then I took it out.
man, that is a regrettable decision, I think.
Probably the most regrettable decision of my lifetime. I want to say I can't think of anything more I regret than that.
Yeah, that's pretty rough. My first car had power steering, and I was like, oh no, this manual steering is where it's at. And now I'm like trying to parallel park my car. I'm like, damn, power steering is where it's at.
But yeah, so Steven wanted to get AC in his car. I know way back in the day when I first met him, he talked about potentially a unit like the Vintage Air system. So he already bought a non power steering AC bracket, the Japanese one. So he was all ready to get set up. And then, yeah, by chance, because of COVID, he couldn't work his regular job. So now he's here happily at Battle Garage. And luckily, he's in this facility, and he also has another car. So his Corolla is here right now to be the number one test car for the. I guess I don't know. Do I make the announcement now? Like the Autohaus Vintage Air drop-in kit.
Yeah, I think this is time to announce it.
So yeah, so thanks to the motivation from Eric Teti, Autohaus is developing a drop-in Vintage Air based system for the AE86 chassis right now.
That is such good news. I cannot explain how much more I like my 8.6 after the Vintage Air system being installed in it. It's like it's night and day. I mean, I used to think about, you know, if I stepped outside and it was hot, I would consider not driving the car, or would decide not to drive the car, or if I did drive it, I ended up sweating. I'd be kind of miserable. And then at that point, it's like, I'm definitely going to be the only one driving it. I'm not driving my girlfriend around. I'm not driving friends around. Like, I need to deal with this miserable hot car because I'm, a Corolla obsessed weirdo like the rest of us. But now it just feels more like a car, which a lot of times the Corolla does not really feel like a real car. But having working air conditioning, it truly feels like it.
So officially, Autohaus is a Vintage Air distributor now.
Yeah, congrats on that. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you, man. Would you like to hear the process up to this point?
I would.
Okay, great. So I had no idea where to start. So I thought a good place to start would be to call the Vintage Air sales department and see how do I start. So my salesperson was Mr. Roy from Vintage Air. And throughout this process, I want to just say, like, what's really impressed me the whole time is that the people I've talked to have been so knowledgeable and then so helpful for me, which is totally opposite of what I've expected in the automotive aftermarket. Where, like, I think you previously mentioned when you brought your Corolla to the shop, you had to explain, like, yeah, it's a Corolla, but no, hold on, it's the cool one. So
yeah, exactly.
They were totally willing to work with me. Like, I kind of explained what I do here. Like, yeah, we work on these like niche specialty cars that only were produced in the US for 3 or 4 years. And yeah, they totally followed up. Like, I'd ask them about a product and right away they'd be like, oh yeah, it's on page 53. And I was like, oh my God, these guys really know what they're talking about. And
that's awesome. That's really cool to have somebody that's knowledgeable and truly cares and like wants to help you with your project, because that does not feel like the case a lot of the time.
So you mentioned Vintage Air having kits for Datsun. So I asked him about that too. Like, hey, you guys have kits already for some classic Japanese cars. So actually, someone like me is compiling their own Vintage Air kits to sell as Datsun kits. It's not actually Vintage Air themselves.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so they do have I think it's called a builder's kit, so like a drop-in kit for that's application specific. They do have one for the Toyota FJ40, but that's the only drop-in import kit that Vintage Air themselves has right now.
Wow, I didn't know that. I actually found out about Vintage Air for the first time because Larry Chen, the photographer based out of LA, posted about it. He has a Vintage Air setup in his 240Z, and I think he worked with Vintage Air. He might be like, that car might be sponsored by them or something like that. But I guess I just assumed that it was a kit, but I guess that's not the case.
I know specifically because researching Datsun kits, they make typically two types, so like a engine bay only and then a complete kit. So the engine bay only, I was thinking a lot of Corollas now, it's like somebody took all the engine bay stuff out, exactly like in my case. So I toyed with the idea of having like a Datsun kit where you could retain all the interior stuff and just have Vintage Air in the engine bay. But it looks like in those Datsun kits, they've had to specialty make some adapter fittings. So for example,
Gotcha.
like if you wanted to run your original Corolla compressor, you'd need adapter fittings from that Japanese compressor up to Vintage Airlines, or same thing for the evaporator. You'd need adapter fittings from Metric to the size 8 or size 10 Vintage Air hose fittings.
Maybe it's just me, but like to me, it's kind of like a while you're in there type of thing. You might as well just do the rest of it. I don't know. I feel like the peace of mind that you get from knowing like the system from where it starts to the point when it's blowing cold air on your face is all new is just like so good.
And I completely agree. So at this point, I don't think I want to make a engine bay only kit. I think it makes more sense to do the comprehensive all the way from your hands touching the dial all the way out to the engine bay, all brand new stuff. I think that is the way to go for Corolla right now.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's kind of the move. That I mean, that's what I did, and it's definitely the thing that I would recommend to people.
So in the next part of being a dealer, Steven and I, oh, here's the next part. So Roy suggested that to mail us a paper catalog, and because I'm old school, I like to flip through the paper catalog. It's funny because Steven's like, shit, I hate to say it. I think Steven's like 8 or 9 years younger than me, but he's like, no, they have it online in PDF. But I'm like, oh, I'm kind of old school. I want the paper one. So,
It's funny actually. My when I went to get mine installed, who Roy is also the sales rep for the shop that installed mine. But when I went to get mine installed, he's like, all right, let's figure this out. And like, I sat down at his desk and he broke the catalog out and I was like, damn, this is cool. This is doing it old school.
And yeah, so Roy sent the shop a paper catalog and some other literature at no cost. And so Steven and I went through the catalog, went through our options, and in a long process, we finally decided like, okay, here is about what we need plus like a good amount of extras just in case, right? So we were ready to make our first purchase order, but then Grant actually suggested like, hey, can you find out if you can become a dealer and like get better pricing or like some other like benefits of being a dealer, right? So yeah, that was the next step, looking into like, we're ready to order, but let's try to be a dealer. So there's two levels of being a dealer, either a builder level dealer or I forget the name now, but like a full on distributor. And so even for the entry level builder, the buy-in is $4,000 plus $2,500 each year to be a builder level dealer.
Whoa,
And
okay.
yeah, since our I know I said the same thing, like, oh man, $4,000. I don't know if I can justify $4,000 for a project that we haven't even really dug into yet. But here's the kicker. So again, thank you to Grant. He was like, why don't you see if the your very first order will go towards that 4 grand. And I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's try. So I asked Roy, and Roy was like, you know what? Why don't you contact the national sales manager, Mr. Potter, because he's the one who takes care of dealer accounts. So yeah, I contacted him, and very quickly he was like, here's what we can do for you. We can set you up with an account, a 4 grand account, and then so you can get set up as a dealer, and then whenever you order parts, we'll pull from that 4 grand account.
Wow, that's awesome.
And I mean, like, I'm so grateful they were able to work with us in that manner, because I mean, I bet you can imagine other places where, like, if you don't have the buy-in, like, we're not gonna deal with you, right?
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, we got the account, and like all of this happened like really quickly. And I actually talked to Mr. Potter on the phone, and he ended up being a really nice guy too for being the national sales manager. Man, I was like, he was like really pleasant to talk with on the phone. I mean, one of the very first things he said was like, "Oh, so you guys work on a lot of Corollas then, huh?" And I was like, "Oh wow, cool."
Oh my God. Yeah, dude, that's so rare to get like a great person on the phone that really wants to talk and understand what you're doing, especially because, this is hyper niche.
Yeah, and he like was totally generous with his time on the phone. And I think one of the things that struck me at the end of the conversation was like, yeah, if people call in for Corollas, I should probably just refer them to you if you're doing the vintage air stuff now. And I was like, oh man, that'd be amazing.
Wow, that's awesome.
So yeah, man, this thus far, like dealing with vintage air has been like nothing but a pleasure. So
I mean, that's super exciting. I hope that this all works out really well, and like the main goal is to get more people to like be kind of restoring these cars. So I think air conditioning like this is such a welcomed upgrade. I can't imagine anybody not wanting their air conditioning to be colder. So yeah, I really hope you can make this even more accessible, because I know that like when I did my I had my air conditioning system done at the end of last year, so a lot of the shop labor went into them, doing custom lines and custom tubing for the inside to get to my vents so that it would mate up with the OEM vents, and creating custom brackets and stuff. So I think a lot of shop hours went into the custom aspect of it. So it's exciting that you're sitting down and doing this and creating the kit so that it takes a lot of the hours of customization out of it. Because if you can do it once and really document it and create the parts people need, then that kit is going to be amazing.
yeah, so physically where we're at right now, we actually have Steven's car torn down, ready for the vintage air stuff. We also needed to tear it down to physically measure like how much interior hose we're gonna need, like where would the Gen 2 mini unit physically fit under there. And then yeah, again, thank you to you, Eric. Like your pictures have been enormously helpful. Like seeing your
awesome.
pictures, like me and Steven would question something, and then we'd see your pictures, and I'd be like, okay, I feel more comfortable that I see they did it this way, or this can fit in that way.
Cool. That's really good to know. I'm glad that it's like helping you out and like making it easier. I felt bad that I didn't have like full out documentation for you, but I'm glad that what I could give you is helping out.
So all the AC and heat stuff is out of Steven's car right now. The heater valve's out. I have the heater lines looped so we can just drive the car. So the blower motor, evaporator, the big blend door thing, which is giant, like that whole we also are filming this R&D process too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I think the Gen 2 unit's only like 19 inches long versus the OEM units like 3 feet long. I don't know. It's giant. There's 3 giant boxes compared to one compact unit, and we have all the cables out, the cable controls, because we're going to the same servo electronic unit that you're using.
Dude, that electronic unit is so good. It's like so satisfying to turn the knobs on that, and it like I mean, people will probably look up vintage era a little bit after the podcast, but man, it's like so nice that it looks pretty vintage still, and like the knobs don't stick out as some crazy like custom aftermarket thing. It's just like about as simple as a knob could be to turn something on and off. It's perfect.
And this is going to be like way, way, way down the line. So this project I'm going to talk about right now is so Grant also said he's interested in the vintage air kit, but he'd like the interior stuff to look the same, which I can understand. The Corolla turning into this restoration market, majority of people like want the OEM look or maybe even feel. So what I'm referring to is the climate sliders or the climate cables.
Mm-hmm.
So really cool. Vintage Air has a signal converter so that if you want to retain your factory switches but want it to deliver the electronic signal and feel like there's a cable behind it, they actually have a signal converter for
No
your
way.
yeah.
That's really cool. That's actually really incredible.
Yeah. God, I can't believe like the R&D to try to make that thing, but way, way down the line, that's just like another possibility if you had like a, restoration Corolla and you wanted the interior to still look like 1985 Corolla interior, you could still have the look and feel of the original sliders if you wanted to.
Wow, that's awesome.
Again, way, way, way down the line. Let's get a kit together for you guys first.
Right, yeah, of course. I think we're getting to that point of restoration where people are gonna be like, it has to look perfect. But yeah, I think you have a little bit of time, I think, before that's the full demand.
But yeah, I'm definitely excited and optimistic about there was a couple hurdles, right? So the interior duct hose routing, so where the blower motor would shoot the air to, right? So like defrost your feet, your face. We've got that. We have a good game plan for that. A lot of OEM stuff can actually be retained as far as like some of the ducting. We just gotta modify it for like the vintage air duct hose, but taking apart the interior, that's been reassuring. Like, okay, we can make this work.
Cool, that's awesome.
And, yeah, my biggest thing right now that I need your help with is if you can get more pictures of the one-off compressor bracket that they made.
Oh yeah, I can take that tomorrow.
Okay, awesome, man. Thank you. Yeah, that is my other hurdle right now is a bracket for and again taking a step back. So the vintage air system will use a brand new modern Sandin AC compressor that will work with the factory style belt because they make different styles. If you had like an old school car that took a V belt, or if you have a modern car that took a ribbed serpentine belt, they have different Sandin compressors. So creating a physical bracket that mounts the compressor to the engine block. I bought 2 pairs of they have universal builder kit mounts, but it's like the rest of it that I'm trying to figure out, building a one-off mount for the compressor to the engine block.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what mine looks like right now. I'll have to take a look at it tomorrow, and I'll send you photos to hopefully make that a little bit easier.
Yeah, as many photos as possible from any angles.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. The shop that did mine, they kind of said like to pick 3 vents that I want the air to come through. Did you figure out a way to like make it go to feet and all the vents and stuff, or are you kind of doing a pick and choose on vents as well?
I'm pretty confident I can get it to work through all the vents.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm pretty confident. For people who have like really taken apart Corolla interiors, there's this weird shaped duct that diverts air to like face, defrost, and then like face, but like the outer 2 vents next to the window. I think we're going to be able to modify that one to work so that you can still have airflow through all the vents. The feet one's going to be a little tricky, but I'm pretty confident we can get all the, defrost, face, and feet. I'm pretty confident we can get all those to work.
That's really cool because mine is just like I chose the vent on the left side, on the bezel, and then like one of those center vents, and then a passenger vent. So those are my like three vents, no feet, definitely not the like little side ones that go to the window. So it sounds like you have with your knowledge of Corollas specifically, it sounds like you have the edge on getting this to work properly with everything.
Yeah, that's again, that's tough. Like totally nothing against that shop. These weirdo cars, like everything you need some guy that's either really knowledgeable or done it for a long time just cuz these cars, right?
Yeah, totally. And I can't blame that shop either because it's not like there's a really nice invested interest for you to make sure that this kit works for all of the Corollas in the world that want it. Like the shop that did mine, I'm sure that they're not banking on ever seeing another Corolla roll into the shop. So it's like,
Yeah.
you know,
So yeah, right now we're waiting for my big multi-thousand-dollar purchase order to come in the mail.
that is that is awesome. I'm so excited about this.
It's been cool. They sent us the like dealer intro kit already. So like I got some legal paperwork. I got a big like nice vintage air sign. I think you saw that in my story.
Yes, that is so cool. I was so excited when I saw that.
And they also gave us like this wall banner that we still gotta hang up in the office area. But yeah, man, every day I come into work and then I give Steven an update. I always see Steven's really pumped too. He's like, it's happening.
That's amazing. Man, I'm so glad that this is all happening. It's just exciting.
Do you have any questions about like the process or like where we're at right now? I'm sure you've got like because I'd like to hear your feedback on anything about the system too. Now that like I'm physically going to get started on the project.
I mean, it's exciting that in general that you're like doing this project and taking on the big task of like creating a kit to help the community and to just make these cars work better than they ever have before. That's super exciting, and I feel like that speaks volumes to like what the Autohaus is right now, and especially like what it can be and what it's going to be in the future. You know, like being able to breathe new life into these cars, whether it's restoration or whether it's like through performance or whether it's through improving on factory things like air conditioning. Like that's exciting that you're tackling all of those things.
I really appreciate it, man. But once again, man, I gotta credit you for giving me the idea and like constantly. I think you've been subtly like nudging me, like, "Hey, vintage air, got AC in my car."
I'm happy to do it. I'm glad that my Corolla has become like a nice testing platform for a lot of things to happen. You know, it's like I think I have the first vintage air system in an 8.6. I'm driving on prototype annex coils. Like I'm glad it's been like a development tool to help the whole community grow.
Yeah, and if anyone listening to the podcast would like to help in any way, so I'll tell you the conversation I had with Steven the other day about, like, let's say I get the one-off compressor bracket fabricated and it's good. Now the task is draw it up in CAD or have it 3D scanned so that I can mass produce it. And then here's where like I kind of jokingly told him like, man, someone else needs to be doing that, man. Not just some privateer like me. Go out and all the resources to get that thing scanned and produced.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyone listening, I could really use help with that. Like if you got if you're able to draw stuff up in CAD, if you have a manufacturing connect, if you can 3D scan stuff, I could really use help with that because that helps out the whole world of Corolla owners, right?
Sounds like a job for JSP, and then the bracket to hold the compressor is going to be the nicest looking thing about the whole system.
Oh man, yeah. Man, I thought about that too, like the CAD drawings. I'm not sure how often you are on Facebook, but people have made CAD drawings for one-off stuff like Corolla front hubs that take different bearings and like they don't want to share the CAD drawings because like I've heard one guy make the argument like I I invested so much of my own time into doing R&D and developing this CAD drawing, but I've honestly have mixed feelings about it because I understand that really put in, I mean, me more than me especially, right? I understand the time that goes into doing R&D, creating a product. But then it's tough, right? Because then you have the one of one, and then how are other people gonna get it if you don't plan to manufacture it?
Yeah, I think I do have mixed feelings about that too, because like you don't want to just like give your work away for free, but like yeah, if you don't really plan to profit off of it, then there's really no harm in giving it away for free. But yeah, I mixed feelings on that as well. I will say, I think it was today a new video went up on Go Time, which we've talked about before. It's that Dylan's channel from Australia with the KE70s.
Yes, yes.
He just designed a replacement panel for the KE70 dash where the OEM stereo would go, and it's just like it's a cover for that with a couple gauge holes for gauges in it, and it's made out of the ABS plastic that automotive stuff uses. And yeah, they figured out how to make it look really clean and really OEM. And in the video, he talks about like, hey, if anybody needs one of these, just hit us up and let us know. We're not gonna like mass produce this thing, but if you want one, like let us know and you can come print it and like we'll figure out how to get you one. So it's cool that like even though they're not trying to like mass market produce this niche little thing, they're kind of like, hey, this is it, and if you want it, we'll make it for you.
Yeah, there's got to be some sort of medium where, privateers who do have the know-how and the machinery to like CAD stuff out and do the R&D. There's got to be like a middle ground to where consumers can access this too. I mean, all of this is just so that we can all keep enjoying these cars. These cars can physically be running and we can enjoy them, and then also the culture of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that it's pretty good. OEM is definitely better, but I have a 3D printed Koki grill on my car right now.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Hosen scanned his grill and printed it out at when he was going to college. They had a 3D scanner and printer there, so he printed it out in like two pieces and glued it together in the middle. And that's what I have in my car right now, and it looks pretty good.
Again, that's one of those parts like bumpers, right? Like who reproduction bumpers are coming out. I'm sure you see a lot of people upset, but at the same time, like, hey, Toyota's not going to make them anymore.
Yeah, Toyota's not going to make them anymore, and it's like they're not cheap replicas. It's like they are really nice pieces, and there's already like a level of insanity that like you take this like piece of art that is a car, you invest so much time and money into it, and then like most art you like safely hang it on the wall. This is like art that you then drive on the road at 60, 70, whatever miles per hour, surrounded by morons that don't know what you're driving and might ding it in a parking lot. Like it's like the most anxiety inducing thing you could possibly do. So I'm not going to fault anybody for running replica bumpers. They are literally, bump is in the name. Like they are going to get dinged up or scratched. So like if you want to run a replica bumper, that makes a ton of sense to me.
Speaking about really driving your car, do you know Matt Panic came to the shop on Memorial Day?
Yeah, I saw that. That was really cool. His car is fucking awesome. How was it in person?
Oh man, too good in person, man. Too good in person. Matt is definitely a more reserved guy, so I don't know if like shy or ashamed is probably not the right word, but he was like, yeah, it's a little bit rough. But I told him like, hey, you really use this car for like 100 events a year. Like nobody out there should be blaming you for how the car looks, And yeah, it's definitely a well-used car with a lot of character and a lot of spirit in it.
Yeah, I feel like that is kind of the epitome of drift style, right? Like you don't want to see a drift car that has no battle scars, no marks that it's actually been used. You want to see I feel like the whole styling of a drift car is to really put out like a presence and an aura and like an overall vibe. And like, yeah, if you like look at little things, you can tell it's not a show car, but show cars don't, go sideways at 100 events a year, and you're not like driving at the full out like inches away from another car when you're doing tandems. Like drift cars are about style plus, style at speed.
Again, going back to these cars really getting used, I think one thing that I saw in Matt. So I let Matt drive my car, my personal Corolla, for quite a bit.
Oh, what do you think?
And so yeah, this is the first time I'll tell this story. Man, Matt on the phone and Matt on in real life, so calm and reserved.
I listened to the podcast episode with him, and he is like a very chill dude from what I can tell.
Yeah. But that definitely changed when I rode shotgun with him in my car. Like, as we started really driving, I saw like the excitement peak up in his face, and like his tone of voice changed, and I was like, oh, okay, here we go. This is this is the Matt in his element.
Oh, that's awesome.
He was definitely impressed with the 6-speed. Like he talked about how like the 6-speed really changed like the driving dynamic of the car, and he messaged me afterwards like, yeah, man, when I go back home, I'm gonna really like tell people about how like the 6-speed really changes this car.
Because he has the beams in his car, right? So he also has the J160.
Yeah. It's, let's see. Yeah, beams and J160. It's different for some reason. Like I hear it over and over. J160 really fits the 4A.
Man, that is kind of an upgrade I really want to do. I think it would be so cool to have J160 in the 8.6. Obviously, it is cool. And I mean, I drove your car and it is cool. It's amazing. It's like so sick. I really want it.
Even for me, it's a plus and minus. Like, as a restoration car, it sucks because you have to do some modifications to the body. And then every time I get in a T50, a like good T50 car, again, it's like so nostalgic to drive, like a well-sorted T50 or like a Corolla with a well-sorted T50. It's like so nostalgic for me.
Right. That element of it makes sense too. The J160 definitely does feel more modern.
I think that's why I appreciate my wagon so much, because it's still got a T50 in it, and it's like it's not the best, and that's what makes it so good, because it's not the best.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's totally part of it.
And then another thing was like we let Matt go out to the donut zone and do donuts in my car. The videographer student that we're using, it's the videos of my car doing donuts are on his YouTube channel. But yeah, again, when we came back to the shop, I forgot exactly how the conversation went, but he was like, yeah, man, I didn't really mean to push your car that hard. I'm kind of sorry. And I was like, no, don't worry about it, man. Like, I built this car to drive. And like, I remember he like slowed down and paused and like smiled and nodded his head and was like, yeah, that's exactly what I want to hear. And I was like, all right, good stuff.
That's awesome. That's really cool. That being said, being in your car while it was doing donuts, did that make you want to go to a drift event?
So I wasn't in the car. I like to let like I feel like I'm old saying this, but I like to let like the kids have fun. So like so everyone else except for me rode in Matt's car or like got to ride with Matt in my car, because like I like to let everyone else have fun,
What a trustworthy guy. Damn, that's amazing. That was probably the best choice you could have made, because I feel like if you were in the car while it was doing donuts and drifting around, then you would have started drifting the car, and then it would cost even more.
Oh man. Well, on the other side too, it was like fun to watch, because like I've never seen my car do that, and your car sounds different when someone else is driving. You're outside listening to it, right? So I was like,
yeah, totally.
This is a strange sensation. That's my car.
Yeah, it's weird. I've had somebody like film, drive my car so I could film like drive-bys of it, and it's like it's almost like a surreal experience. You're like, how is the car driving, and I'm not in it? That's awesome, though. I really want to see this car in person. It seems like, the same thing we were talking about earlier. It's like seeing photos of it is one thing, but like seeing it in person is another thing. So like I really want to. I feel like that car must have like an energy around it when you kind of like stand with it and look at it, and especially ride in it.
Oh man, the other thing, I don't know if I've mentioned it before, is that because I had a first gen Celica, I know of Matt way before any Panic stuff. Like I know of Matt and followed his car since it was just like this guy on the first gen Celica forum with this blue Celica. So like seeing the 10 years of progression to see like when Panic Wire first started, seeing that car get a Beams, when Beams was like, you know, like when Nick did Beams, when no one really knew like how to beam swap yet. And like all the way up to this point where like Matt is trying to start out his own Corolla company thing, producing axles and other parts so far.
Yeah,
it's like,
Panic Made. I'm super excited for that.
And then to like see the car and like meet him in real life, like so surreal for me. Like I would say like meeting one of your like childhood heroes, you know?
That's awesome. That's wow, what a good experience to have. I makes sense why he was driving your car.
Yeah, I guess the other part of it too was I didn't know if he drinks or not. So like when he came, I was like, hey, we have beer too, and he was like, oh yeah, great. Would you like a beer also? I was like, beer with Matt Panic, of course, man.
Hell yeah! Oh my god, yeah. Oh, that's awesome, man. Oh god, I want to come back to Autohaus so badly. Like just that kind of hang day is like the one day that I came by. I enjoyed it so much. Nick and I have already been talking about like as soon as the world gets to a place that everybody can be happier and safer than we are right now, we definitely like first thing we want to do is come out to California and see you guys.
Oh yeah, man, we'd love to have you, and I'd love to have another hang day. Not even just for you guys to come, but because it gives me an excuse to take a break also. So
yeah, dude, you need one. Everyone in that building needs a break.
Win for both of us.
I was almost like disappointed when I went on. I think on Instagram I saw that like Annex and you and Battle Garage have all like found a way to safely work through COVID. I was like, damn, I thought they were gonna like get a break finally, but nope. You guys managed to keep working. I mean, dude, I am excited to be on the podcast again. I am so appreciative of the 8.6 community for being what it is. You know, like since putting out the zine a couple days ago, so many people have reached out, so many people have shared, and it's cool to see. It's cool to see people come together and do something meaningful and just be excited and happy about this very specific weird car that most people would never really get to understand. So I'm hyped I got to do the podcast with you again. This is like doing the podcast for a second time during all this has been like the highlight of quarantine for me. So I'm just thankful you're doing this and that this community exists because it's nothing but fun.
And likewise, thank you too, man. I don't know if you've listened to the Corolla Brotherhood episode yet, but
no, I haven't. I really want to.
Oh yeah, dude, that one was wild too. Oh, so I need to thank you again for something else because you're the one who kicked off me doing phone podcasts.
Oh, really? Amazing. Oh, I'm glad. Yeah. I'm glad I could make that happen.
Yeah, like our over the phone podcast was the very first one I did, and I'll tell you and I'll tell everyone listening that like I was so apprehensive because I was like, because I listened to a lot of other podcasts and they were saying like, yeah, viewership went up after we started doing in person only, and like I really enjoy, for me personally, I really enjoy the in person feel of podcasting where we can like interact in real life. So I was like, ah, man, and then. I don't know if I'm just because I'm hard on myself. I was like, people are going to think this is a cop out because, you know, whatever reason I dreamed up in my brain. But man, like, thank you, Eric, man. You're the one who kicked off this phone podcast. And I've been able to reach such a wide audience now, or be able to podcast with such a wide audience. Like, you know, Chaden's from the UK, and that's, I think, like 13
that's
hours.
That's incredibly cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for the Corolla Brotherhood one too because I like see them around and I like, you know, I see them. I've just seen them the whole time I've been into 8.6s, but I haven't known a lot about them. So I'm really excited to hear that one. And I'm excited. Honestly, like I haven't listened to his. I feel like I'm usually like caught up on the podcast, but since I haven't been out driving because there's nowhere to go because we're quarantined, I have like a I have a backlog of episodes to listen to. I think the only one I've listened to in the last like month or so has been the Panic Made one. So I'm excited to sit down and do some drives and catch up on everything because you've had some awesome guests.
It's been so cool that like complete strangers too from across oceans and across states I've been able to just like connect with so well. Because I mean, in real life, I'm a pretty introverted guy. Like it's tough. Like when I got to do customer phone calls, I'm always like nervous on the phone. But podcasting, it's been cool because it's like helped me develop personally too. Where essentially every time I'm making a cold call to like some stranger from another country, right?
Yeah, that's like I assume the first time you do that, it's like a nerve-wracking thing. But that's amazing that you're like starting to feel like it's helping you open up and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, man, thank you again. As many terrible things have been happening these days, there's definitely been a silver lining for, I would say, both of us. Or, I would say for anyone listening, if it's a tough time for you right now, like try to find the silver lining because there's been definitely many blessings through these few months for, I'm sure both of us.
Yeah, I totally agree. And one thing that I would want to say to people, because I feel like I spent the beginning of quarantine kind of being like, all right, how do I be productive? How do I be like the best me I can be? Like, do I like start working out every day? How do I funnel all this energy into whatever? But like, we're in a global pandemic. Like, if you don't feel okay, that's okay. I don't think that everybody needs to take every single waking hour during this to like try and reinvent themselves or try and figure out like how to like pursue 100% of a new passion or something crazy. I think taking care of yourself during all this and recognizing that like the world is pretty fucked up right now. And if you wake up not feeling that great because of that, that's totally okay. And if you wake up feeling motivated to do something, then that's okay too. But, we're all getting through this very weird and unprecedented thing that's never really happened in a lot of our lives. So I'm just happy to be getting through it with everybody else.
I'll share a personal story with you. So this coming Monday's episode will be Cole Grove, and Cole Grove lives in Indiana, and he has a 20 valve Levin, and it's a real deal Levin. Like that's his very first Corolla.
Dude, I love his car.
Okay, perfect. You know who he is. Perfect. And,
yeah, I think I might have tagged you on Instagram because I was like, yo, this dude's into BMX and Corollas. I feel like this is the guy.
Oh, damn it. You're the one who did it. Okay. So I guess I have to thank you for that one, too. So then Greg Schultz DM'd me right after, like, yeah, man, you need to go podcast with Cole. You guys are going to podcast forever, BMX and Corolla. And how this links in, like, with our time right now is that I've heard a lot about, like, because we have so much quarantine or alone time, is a good time for self-reflection. And I think I've had a lot of time to do that too, despite being busy here. And after podcasting with Cole, it like really inspired me to get back on my BMX bike, right? And
awesome.
Yeah, man. So I've actually like started working on it. I brought it out of the shed. I rode around and okay, so in my insecurity, I went up and I Google searched like, how old is too old to be riding a BMX bike? and then like I read a few like forum posts and like there's guys in their like 40s and 50s like still like active in BMX. And then after I like brought my bike out of the shed and like rode around the block, and I thought to myself, like, who cares about perception, man? Like, I enjoy riding my bike. Like, who cares about the perception? That's like part of the self-reflection,
Oh, absolutely. That's really cool that you were able to pick that back up during all of this because, I mean, like, yeah, this is an awesome. If you're able to revisit something you used to do that used to make you happy, that you haven't had the chance or the time or the just availability to do because life gets in the way. This is a really, really cool time to go back and try and start those things up again.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good excuse for me to get some exercise too, because I have a lot of other bad habits. I'm sure if
there you go. You got to offset them.
But yeah, Eric, I want to thank you so much again for, I had like 10 things to thank you for on this podcast, and then you reminded me of 10 more. So
Oh my God.
yeah.
Dude, thank you. Thank you for having me on. Thanks for doing everything you're doing with 8.6s and just like helping keep this really weird and cool and loving community alive, because it is nothing but fun.
Yeah, man. And it's been so great to catch up. Like, again, I would love to make this like a regular thing. Like, I don't know, like once a month we'll do an episode just to catch up,
If people don't get sick of listening to me talk, then I am super down to do this as much as you want, because I enjoy it so much, and I have way more things to say about 8.6s than anyone should.
Yeah. Make a list. We'll do a compilation episode. I'll make a list too.
Okay, amazing. That sounds awesome.
All right. So before we talk for another hour,
Dude,
I really should get back.
Yeah, dude, go work, go restore some Corollas and make everybody have air conditioning, and stay safe and have fun. And I can't wait to get back out there, dude. I miss you guys, and I'm hyped to hopefully have the world get, back to normal in some ways, and in other ways I hope the world grows and changes. So
Definitely, man, and well said. We'll do this again soon. Thank you so much again, Eric.
Yeah, later, man.